Prolonged Trials. Francis Fenelon, 1651 to 1715. Why do we rebel against our prolonged trials? Because of self-love. And it is that very self-love that God proposes to destroy. As long as we cling to self, his work is not achieved. What right have we to complain? We suffer from an excessive attachment to the world, above all to self. God orders a series of events that detach us gradually from the world first, and finally from the self also. The operation is painful, but our corruption makes it needful. If the flesh were healthy, the surgeon would not need to probe it. He uses the knife only in proportion to the depth of the wound and the extent of proud flesh. If we feel his operation too keenly, it is because the disease is active. Is it cruelty that makes the surgeon probe us to the quick? No, far otherwise. It is skill and kindness. He would do the same with his only child. This is how God treats us. He never willingly puts us to any pain. His fatherly heart does not desire to grieve us, but he cuts to the quick so that he may heal the ulcers of our spiritual being. He must tear from us what we love wrongly, unreasonably, or excessively, the thing that hinders his love. In so doing, he causes us to cry out like a child from whom one takes away a knife with which it could injure or kill itself. We cry loudly in our despair and murmur against God, just as the petulant child murmurs against its mother. But he lets us cry and saves us nevertheless. God afflicts us only for our correction. Even when he seems to overwhelm us, it is for our own good, to spare us the greater evil we would do to ourselves. The things for which we weep would have caused us eternal distress. That which we count as loss was then indeed most lost when we fancied that it belonged to us. God has stored it up safely to be returned to us in eternity. He deprives us of the things we prize only because he wants to teach us to love them purely, truly, and properly in order to enjoy them forever in his presence, and because he wants to do 100 times better for us than we can even desire for ourselves. Nothing can happen in the world except by God's permissive will. He does everything, arranges everything, makes everything to be as it is. He counts the hairs of our head, the leaves of every tree, the sand on the seashore, the drops of water from the mighty ocean. When he made the world, his wisdom weighed and measured every atom. Every moment he renews and sustains the breath of life. He knows the number of our days. He holds the cords of life or death. What seems to us weightiest is as nothing in the eyes of God. A little longer or shorter life becomes an imperceptible difference before him. What does it matter whether this frail vessel, this poor clay, should be thrown aside a little sooner or later? How short-sighted and erring we are. We are aghast at the death of one in the flower of his age. What a sad loss, we cry out. But to whom is the loss? What does the one who dies lose? A few years of vanity, delusion, and peril? God takes that person away from the evil and saves that one from his own weakness and the world's wickedness. What do they lose who love God? The danger of earthly happiness, a treacherous delight, a snare that caused them to forget God and their own welfare. But in truth, they gain the blessing of detachment through the cross. That same blow by which the one who dies is saved prepares those who are left to work out their salvation in hope. Surely then, it is true that God is very good, very loving, very full of pity with regard to our real needs, even when he seems to overwhelm us and we are most tempted to call him hard. The sensitiveness of self-love makes us keenly alive to our own condition. The sick person who cannot sleep thinks the night is endless, yet it is no longer than any other night. In our cowardice, we exaggerate all we suffer. Our pain may be severe, but we make it worse by shrinking under it. The real way to get relief is to give ourselves up heartily to God, to accept suffering because God sends it to purify us and make us worthier of him. The world smiled upon you and was as a poison to your soul. Would you wish to go on right up to the hour of death, in ease and pleasure, in the pride of life and soul-destroying luxury, clinging to the world, which is Christ's enemy, and rejecting the cross, which alone can make you holy? The world will turn away and forget, despise, and ignore you. Are you surprised at that, since the world is worldly, unjust, deceitful, and treacherous? Yet you are not ashamed to love this world, from which God snatches you to deliver you from its bondage and make you free. You complain of your very deliverance. You are your own enemy when you are so alive to the world's indifference, and you cannot endure what is for your real good when you so keenly regret the loss of what is fatal to you. This is the source of all your grief and pain.